Hello. So we dived into the syntax of Salesforce's query language, SOQL. We looked at the why of SOQL. We understand a little bit of the foundation, some of the required syntax that is needed to write a SOQL clause. In this video, we're going to dive into a couple use cases, and then we're going to show examples of actually building those queries within our org. As stated, we're going to leverage Salesforce Inspector Reloaded as our query tool for this use case. And let's just start fresh. And let's just dive into some of our use cases, right? So our first use case is a data cleanup. And essentially we have a field called high value customer. And essentially we want to populate that field based off business logic. So say, for instance, an account that is considered high value in our org has more than, let's say, an annual revenue over 500K and also has more than 50 employees, right? So that is considered a high value customer. And if our stakeholders say, hey, can you pull that data so we can see that, and then we can do a data cleanup of the field, I'll showcase how we can leverage a query for that, right? As we stated, we're going to start with select as our required syntax, and then we have from account. So this is our baseline of our query, right? And then we're going to add a couple additional fields, right? So let's say we want to grab the name. And one thing I like about Salesforce Inspector Reloaded, your field value API names are here. So if you don't know the exact API name, as long as you know a little bit about the field name, you can kind of pull it all together here. So we have name as one of our fields. We have annual revenue, which is key. And then we also have number of employees, right? And then we also have high value customer, right? As one of our things. So that is our structure. So we can run it, and this is our initial query. So you can see how we could pull the data, and we can actually see the data here, which is pretty cool. But if we dive into our business requirements, we had a requirement that we wanted to see only high value customers, and we're looking to clean up this value here to make sure this is correct within our organization. And a high value customer, as we stated, their annual revenue would have to be over 500,000, and they would have to have more than 50 employees. So let's filter or break this data down even further, or more granular, right? So as we stated before, we have our where clause. So we're going to leverage that here. So let's say where, and then we're going to look into the field annual revenue. And let's say our annual revenue has to be greater than 500,000, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go. And the number of employees, right? So we have our logical operator, and number of employees is also greater than 50, right? So our query looks good. Let's run. And here we go. As you can see, if this was a real business requirement, all our records within our org has our high value customers value as false. And these are actually really our high value customers. So we would want to export this data and then import it to update this value here. So that's an example of one use case there. Let's dive into a different use case on a different object, right? Let's look into the opportunity object, for example. So let's just build our baseline query. So select ID from opportunity. And as I stated, we can see suggested fields here from the opportunity, which is great. Let's just run our query, clear out that previous query. And so let's get started, right? So let's say our sales manager, this is our second use case, right? Let's say our sales manager wants to see pipeline for this year or at the end of this year, or let's say next 90 days, right? If our We want to see our pipeline for our next 90 days. So what opportunities are scheduled to close and et cetera, right? So let's go ahead and pull our data, right? So let's go ahead and add our fields. Say, of course, we would want to see close date in this case. Then we want to see stage name, which would be important. We would want to see expected revenue. And then I'll add in account. Within Salesforce Query Language, based off the relationship between the two objects, you could actually dive into fields on related objects. So that's pretty cool. So you see, in opportunity, we could dive into account, and we can now pull account fields in. And we're just going to pull the account name for this use case. And let's just run our query first. And as you can see, we have our data here, which is awesome. But as stated, we have further requirements. We want to see our pipeline in the next 90 days. So I'll go ahead and add our where clause. And let's say close date, right? Close date equals next 90 days. And you can see we have a list of date functions that we could use. We're going to use next 90 days for this use case. And we want to make sure that we have opportunities that aren't closed. So we want to see our pipeline, right? We don't want to see opportunities that are already closed. So let's run this. And as you can see, this is our pipeline. We have 90 records that are within the pipeline in the next 90 days, which is great. And okay, so we have this data here. And let's say we wanted to even break it down further by using some of the other syntax that we learned about, that being that limit and also order. So let's say we wanted to limit this to, let's say, 20 records. We have 90 now. So, let's say limit to 20, right? Boom. So now we only have our first 20 records, right? And let's say, for instance, if we wanted to see close date of closing, opportunities closing, let's say this month, right? We could do that, which would be cool. And then we could say, let's say we want to limit it to 10, right? That type of thing. So those are great use cases and seeing the data in that way. Also, if we remove our limit, and we could, if we want to order our data, so say we want to order and say ascending order. So we want to see like in order by close date, right? Forgot to add our field. And then we could put that in ascending order. And there we go. So we can see in opportunities closing this month in ascending order, which is cool. And then we have the option that include limit as well. So say we wanted to limit our data to first 10 records, we could do that as well. So limit to 10, and we can only see 10 within our order by. So this is our second use case. We're going to dive into one more, nail it in the head. Let's say we're going to stay on the opportunity object from opportunity, and let's dive into our pipeline again. So let's populate our fields first, actually. So let's say that we want to do a data cleanup as well, but we want to see opportunities that do not have an amount. So say our stakeholders say, hey, I noticed that some of our opportunities in our org actually do not have amount populated. Can you pull those records so we can take a look at them and clean that data up? And you say, yeah, sure, definitely. I'll go ahead and pull it. And you dive into your query editor, and then you start writing your query, right? I'm just going to populate a few fields: name, stage name, close date, close date from opportunity, close date. And of course, we want to see amount because that's the field that we're looking to see if there's a value. And we want to just check, we want to add our where clause. We want to check that where amount equals null, right? So that's where that null comes in. So if there's no value for amount, please pull that data. And as you can see, we have 15 records in our org that do not have an amount, and we can give this data to our sales manager, or if we know what the amount is, we could populate it just based off of your org and your limit. So these are really realistic day-to-day things that go on within my org and working in Salesforce. And I just love querying. It helps a lot when I need to pull data pretty quickly. Something that I would suggest everybody just dive into. You can start with your trailheads and just give it a test. I think it's very helpful. If you checked out this video, I just want to say I appreciate you. Thank you for everybody that takes the time to comment and like the videos. Please subscribe if this content was helpful to you. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a great